If you want to know how to go from absolute newbie to rookie of the year, then this video is for you. I'm going to be breaking down what I did in my first year and kind of how I got into the business. And hopefully, this video kind of helps you see where you are and how you can put yourself in a position to be the most successful. My name is Kyle Petitt. Welcome to the To the Moon Collective. Thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate it. Let's just dive in. A little bit of my backstory for those of you that don't know me super well. I spent the last 9 years in Air Force Special Operations. I was flying the mighty AC-130 gunship. It was a spectacular career. I learned a lot, but as you can guess, it was not really real estate. In fact, I didn't know anything about real estate. When I got to my first duty station, just like a lot of people, I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to rent. So I found some friends and we ended up renting a house together. There was three of us and we were just, splitting the rent. And then at that point, or a little bit further down the road, I ended up meeting a girl. We got married, decided we weren't going to live with roommates, and we decided to buy a house. Now, I was in a very small town down in New Mexico, so it was a really easy place to buy real estate. We bought a house on the golf course on the 18th hole, literally, and it was 150,000. It was actually 149,000. That's crazy, especially when you look at today's market and like where the median prices have gone. Anywho, so we ended up buying this house, and it was the first time I realized I was like, oh, that was underwhelming. Like it was super exciting. I actually remember, if I may, I actually remember when we first moved in and we were sitting there talking to each other. We were just standing in the kitchen, and it was just like this wild feeling of like, of all the places on the entire earth, this little, 0.13 acres is ours. And that was really cool. It was a really special feeling. And I never forget that when, especially when somebody's buying their first home, like there's just something really settling about being able to call a place your own. But that being said, that was about it. I was like, okay, well, now I have a house, and just kept making payments and doing the thing. Well, it was funny because that was in 2016. And then obviously the COVID thing happened in 21, 22. Interest rates dropped to 2.25%. And like for VA, dude, I knew people that had like 2.15. That is bananas. That's so low. But the thing is I had no clue. I did not know the power of the interest rate. I just knew that I was at like a 4.2. That was a little bit higher. And so I said, well, I'll refinance. That's great. But when you have a $150,000 home going from a 4.2 to a 2.2, or I think I went to a 2.5, it's not like a dramatic difference. And so it wasn't that impactful. It saved me like $200 a month, right? Now, if you're in like a $600,000 home, that difference is wild. And we'll get to that in a minute. So what ends up happening is um, I go on my last deployment in 2021. I actually happened to be flying in Afghanistan during the retrograde, we'll call it, when we were pulling out of Afghanistan. I was flying overhead Kabul airport when all of that stuff was happening that you were seeing on the news. And I had quite a bit of time down. Like we'd fly and then we'd sit for a couple of days. And at the time, so I'd been long since divorced, and my current girlfriend had moved up to Colorado Springs. And I was like, I think I'm done when I get home. It's weird, but like the global war on terror, it was ending for the most part. And I just felt like, okay, I think this is a good time for me to hang up the boots. Well, then I had to figure out, okay, well, what am I going to do? Like, because I'm not a pilot. I was a combat systems officer. So, like, if you've ever seen Top Gun, you have Maverick who sits up front and Goose who sits in the back. Well, I was the guy that sits in the back, operates all the systems in the aircraft. And I don't know if you know this, but like, there's not a lot of jobs that do that in the civilian world. And so I was a little bit nervous. Now, I had gone to college. I was a broadcast journalism major, did a lot of sports reporting. I knew that I had zero desire to do that. But as I read this book by Brene Brown, and if you are considering a major life change, then I really want you to, if you take nothing else from this video, this is what I want you to take. she had this part in her book. I think it was in Dare to Lead, and it was like 3 or 4 pages, honestly, of um, core values and things that are important to you. And her philosophy was that to make big decisions in your life, you really actually have to narrow down what your core values are. And so you go through and you just kind of circle anything that resonates with you. And then you move it over. And then you start going and you cut it in half. And you're like, okay. And then you cut it in half again. Okay. And then you get down to like your top two, maybe three, if you can't get rid of the third one. And that was super interesting. I mean, it's a lot of introspection, because you're like, well, I like both of these things and they're both important. And you're almost like, yeah, but if I could only have one and not the other. And what ends up happening is you really get down to your core, hence core values. And so when I did this, the ones that popped for me were health and wellness, which I consider one, and freedom and autonomy, which I consider one as well. And that kind of helped me pursue, at least kind of like open my aperture to like what is going to provide me the opportunity to stay healthy and also give me a lot more freedom and control over my life. Obviously, in the military, you don't have much of that. So the other thing that was simultaneously going on is, yes, obviously I was flying in an airplane for my regular job, but when you're in the Air Force, that's not what you're doing full time. So that is your primary duty, but then you have another job at the same time. And I won't belabor this, but effectively, I spent about a year and a half being an exercise planner. And at the base that we were at, we would have, Green Berets, the Ranger Regiment, SEAL teams, whoever it may be, they would come out, they would do an exercise, and they'd request to work with all the aircraft, right? We had 5 or 6 different types of aircraft at that base. And I was effectively the single point of contact and kind of like, the puppeteer for these big multi-million-dollar exercises that would last 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I found that like I really personally actually enjoyed that. But it wasn't, but I had to figure out like, what is it about this that I enjoy? And it was the um, putting out fires, being like a single point of failure, negotiating, advocating on behalf of the client. It was kind of like being in the mix. I loved being the hero, and saving the day and making sure that the exercise continued. And, if there was a hiccup, I was the one that, got called and got to fix it. And also it was just a lot of relationship building. I don't know if I already said that, but there was a lot of really cool relationship building. And I got to make friends with, just guys that I never would have met, guys and girls actually, that I just never would have met otherwise, or I would have just met in passing, participating in the exercise, but not actually getting to spend a significant amount of time with these people. And then I had another job. So I did that for about a year and a half. And then for about a year, close to a year and a half, I was kind of on my time as I was getting out, um, where I was doing this job that was just manual data entry. And it was like, my job was to just receive requests for these exercises. And I would just sit at a computer all day and just spreadsheets. And it was Excel spreadsheets. And for some reason, the military is still doing manual data entry for all of this stuff. And I cannot express to you the angst, the frustration, the anger. It was, I hated it. I couldn't do it. I mean, there were days where like my stomach would be boiling and I was just like, I hate this so much. But again, I had to figure out what was it about that I hated. And it was all those things that I just said, right? There was no autonomy. I was stuck to this spreadsheet. I was not interacting with people. It was just me and the computer and just sitting there working and entering data in such a nonsensical way. And so that really kind of led me. I knew that the real estate field provided a lot of opportunity for growth. And obviously, there's a great opportunity for capital. There is literally no ceiling for anybody. It does not matter who you are, there is no limit to your potential earnings. And of course, when you're looking at it through these like rose-colored glasses. You're like, this is freaking amazing. So I'm for sure 100% going to go into this because I'm going to have freedom and flexibility, and I'm going to make a crap ton of money, and it's going to be freaking awesome. So I decided that's what I was going to try to do. And I did what's called Skill Bridge. Now, this was a really unique aspect of me getting into the business. Is that I was still active duty, but Skill Bridge is basically an internship program. So my last 6 months, it was really 5 months, my last 5 months of my active duty time, I moved up to Colorado Springs and I became an intern at a local brokerage. And that was incredible because I was fortunately I know this sounds wild and this might be a spot where you disconnect a little bit from my story, but I had the ability to work on my license, and that was like my sole focus was work on my license, go to trainings, go to team meetings, and I was still getting paid by the military because I was in this like internship phase. I was still active duty technically. That was a major benefit. I'm not going to lie. That really gave me a competitive advantage because I could focus solely on real estate and not be worried so much about where is my paycheck going to come from. Now, that being said, I'm going to caveat that because I very quickly, I mean, I was 2 months in, I started in May and like June and then July hit and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get this ball rolling because I have no way of doing business right now. I've got no prospects. I wasn't even licensed yet because the Colorado license is 168 hours. So it's exhausting. And it really was like, I started to panic a little bit because I was like, oh my God, uh, I am soon not going to have a paycheck coming in. I'm not even licensed. And everybody says it takes, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months to get your first deal. And I was just watching that clock tick. Right. And so that was a little bit of a panic mode for me. So I worked on my license. It took me, okay, sorry for the light change. One of my lights went out. I love technology. I don't have a plug for it. Okay, so it took me a little over 3 months to get through the license. It's 168 hours here for your state. Obviously, you'll just go into Google, you type uh, become a realtor in Tennessee, and it will tell you the hour requirement, the course requirement. It's different in every state. We have the second longest, I think. I want to say Texas has the longest. I think theirs is 180. That takes a long time. And I was just doing it on my own. And I was a little distracted because like I would spend equal amounts of time like in the office, um, like going to trainings and team meetings. And then I started like weighting that because it was more fun because the course sucked. I absolutely hated the course. It was terrible. It was not fun. It was not well written. It was not enjoyable. There was a bunch of me that was like, do I even like this business? And also, yes, I love this business. And that was kind of the cool thing was like, I knew that when I was in the office and we were in team meetings or trainings, or when I listened to podcasts, or when I went to any kind of like summits or events or anything like that, I really, really enjoyed the topic, but the course just sucked. And by the way, they're two different things. So you got to grind through the course. It's not fun, but it is not indicative of what the business is. Well, when I made the decision that I was even going to come up here, this is probably big point number one, what I did to get myself ahead. So, yes, I had bought a house. Other than that, I really didn't know anything about real estate. I just knew real estate appreciates. Big thumbs up. That's all I knew. But I knew that I was also in a low appreciating market. Not many people are moving to Clovis, New Mexico. You probably don't even know where that is, and you should just keep it that way. So, what I started to do is when I decided that I was going to get into the real estate business, I knew that it was a totally new language and something that I was going to have to learn, especially if I was going to be the one representing people while they're trying to buy a house. So, what I started to do was listen to podcasts, and the three big podcasts. I will tout these probably on every freaking episode, and they're not even mine because you will learn so much more from them than you will ever learn from me. That being said, I wouldn't be mad if you subscribe to the channel and show me some love for telling you these three podcasts. Number one, Bigger Pockets. That was my first introduction to really anything real estate, but especially real estate investing. So Bigger Pockets is a forum, it's a podcast, It's a whole community. They've got Instagram channels. They do summits. They do meetups. It is a full-fledged operation, I guess I'll call it. But what they do really well is they break it down for the everyday person. It's not, well, I mean, they are professional investors, but they have people on there that are not professional investors, but have become professional investors, or they've learned how to, or some of them accidentally got into real estate investing. So it is a pretty, it's just so good even before you get into it, because it starts to get your brain hearing terms that maybe and concepts that maybe you've never heard before. And that got me more and more comfortable. So that was a big one. So I really encourage you to start listening to Bigger Pockets. Okay, number 2 is called On the Market. It's actually a subsidiary or like a little baby of Bigger Pockets. Bigger Pockets is the Papa Bear, and then you've got, it's like an offshoot is probably a better word. It's by this guy named Dave Myers. He is a freaking legend, and he really takes the economic principles and the economic things that are happening and breaks them down. And they're talking about, yeah, they talk about investing and they talk about buyer sentiment and all of that stuff, but it's really helping you understand the news and understanding the data that's coming out, because, you know, the news is really just like fear mongering a lot. It's really annoying. And he breaks these really difficult concepts down. And the thing is that the more that you hear these concepts, the easier it then becomes for you to communicate these concepts. And that is huge, because you are going to be representing somebody on a $750,000 transaction. And that is crazy. That's $750,000 or $500,000 or $250,000. It's going to be the biggest purchase of their life. And you have to be ready to field their questions intelligently and competently. So, On the Market is number 2. And then number 3, this is a little bit different, but there is a podcast called Knowledge Brokers that I really like. Knowledge Brokers is by Broke Agent Media, or BAM, which if you see anything now BAM on Instagram like that, just follow it, because it's fun, it's funny real estate stuff. But Knowledge Brokers is a really powerful one, because they're always having people on there talking about developing the skill set of being a good realtor. And what I love is that they don't sugarcoat anything. It is like, hey, guy, you got to work. It's not enough to just exist. It's not enough to just like, well, people like me. I'm charming. I'm cute. Oh, I have a dog too. Like none of that's good enough. You have to develop the skill set, develop the skill set, and you have to be willing to work. And by the way, you also don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? That was like one of my biggest listen, this is a weird thing to say, but like, I like myself. I think I'm pretty competent. Um, I am confident in my ability to learn new skills and to execute and do all those things. But like, getting into real estate was a 100% change for me. I didn't know the systems. I didn't know the processes. I didn't know any of that stuff. So the more that you can do to prepare your mind to get into this new chapter of your life and understand the language and the jargon and the terms and the nuances, which, by the way, you will never stop learning. The sooner that you start doing that, the quicker you will start finding success. Because somebody's going to ask you a question. You become a licensed agent, and one of your friends is going to call and be like, "Hey, Kyle, you're a licensed agent, right?" And you're going to say, "Yeah, I am." And they're going to say, "Dude, I saw this thing in the news. Is the market going to crash?" And if you don't have a good answer, or if you can't intelligently analyze the question or walk them through it, maybe that's a potential client. And then you blow it, because they're like, "Oh yeah, he's for real a rookie." Before we continue on with this video, I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. It would mean a ton to me if you'd hit the subscribe button. I have some unbelievable things planned for this year. This YouTube channel is going to grow and it's going to be insane. The To the Moon Collective, we've got a lot in store. Please hit the subscribe button. And if you have any interest or questions about Real Broker, that is where I am employed, I would love to chat with you about it. Shoot me a DM, hit the Calendly link below, and we can hop on a call. I would love to sponsor you into this company and help you get off the ground and get to the moon with your business. Back to the episode. All right, here we go. Scene change. I got a hat on. It is still the same day, but exciting news. My wife and I submitted an offer on a house, and we are under contract, baby. We're moving over to the west side of Colorado Springs. Super freaking stoked. So celebrations, same day, same topic. Okay, back to it. So a couple things. So now we've got our license, but I wanted to add one more thing before we get into some of the steps that I took that I think got me on the right track. So we talked about the podcast, and I think that that was integral. And the other thing was that I was going to trainings during that time that I was getting my license. I wasn't just trying to learn from home. So I was still like in classes at the brokerage, but also, I was going to team meetings, and that was like super helpful as well. So, that's definitely something to look into when you're considering what brokerage or whatever that you want to join is, are people getting together? Look, the reality is that when you're new, you just don't know anything, and you don't know what you don't know, and you haven't heard of some systems and styles and techniques and all these things. So it's really important to just be around it. Listen, I am not a reader. That's just the reality. I don't like reading. Um, but there are two books that I have to recommend. I am not even associated with this company, but The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, MREA, by Gary Keller. Gary Keller is the, he's the founder of Keller Williams. That book is really, really good. First off, in the first half of the book, there's a lot of good stuff just to get your mind right. They do a lot of, he calls it myth understandings. And it's, it talks a lot about some of these topics that like things that are like going to mentally hold you back. And maybe like misconceptions that you have about the business, or that it's only for some people and not for others. I really recommend that book. The other really powerful thing about the book was honestly that the the systems that it talks about are very thorough, and it talks about that leads is number one, right? Is like our lead generation is the number one most important thing. It is not your business cards. It's not your YouTube channel. It's not your Instagram. It's not your social media. It's none of that. It is, what am I doing to consistently get lead generation? Which is also, by the way, truthfully, kind of the number one question when you're deciding about a brokerage or a team that you're going to join is, what am I going to do to get leads? Does the team or the brokerage provide leads? And how good are they? How, like, what do people on the team say? Are they actually getting stuff and closing? So, leads, leverage, and listings. That's what that book talks about. But it is really, really thorough. I still subscribe to a bunch of those principles, even though I'm not associated with that company. There's a lot of principles. I learned so much from that book, and I refer to it relatively often. The second book, I was scouring my house, and I couldn't find it. It's because it's at my office. Actually, it's at my office because I use it still. I will open it during a buyer's consultation. We do a lot of buyer's consultations over FaceTime because we meet a lot of our clients through YouTube. And so they don't live here in Colorado Springs. So the first time I ever really, really talk with them, we're on FaceTime. So like I'll literally, no kidding, just open up the book and like just kind of follow the buyer's consultation. In fact, Ninja selling is so good. When I went on my first ever listing appointment in my entire life, it was a referral from a friend. He was like, hey, my aunt, she is trying to sell her house. And I told her to use you, but there's also this other big time agent. And I think I know who it is now, but there's this other big time agent that she was also going to interview. And I, no kidding, I just 100% followed the sales or like the listing presentation script that was offered to me in the book. And I walked out with a listing, baby. And it was funny because my admin girl, she goes, She was like, "Oh, it's crazy that you just went on that by yourself." And I was like, "What else was I supposed to do?" She goes, "Oh, well, like, so this other agent went like over a year of listing appointments, like multiple listing appointments before he ever went by himself." So maybe it was dumb, maybe it was dangerous, but it worked out. And I really subscribed to the principles that were in that book. They were a lifesaver. To me, ninja selling is the Bible for how to run a successful real estate business, period. So grab yourself a copy. It will be the best, whatever, 20 bucks that you ever spend. Read it. Both of the books are great. If you only get one, I'd probably go with Ninja Selling because it's very, very tactical. It's a very tactical level book, exactly what to do, when to do it, how to do it, why to do it. So I love that. That made a huge difference. Now, once I got my license, um, I had gone to a couple little conferences, a couple summits that I just paid my own money because, again, I wanted to be around the industry. I wanted to be around people that were doing deals, and conversations and investors. By the way, just because you're a licensed agent does not mean that you can't go to investor meetups. Also, you don't have to pay to freaking go to anything. If you go on Facebook and you type in your, it's like in a groups or events, you go your city, Colorado Springs, real estate investing group. There will be groups and meetups and events that are free that you can attend. And I would highly, highly encourage that because some of those people, man, I call some of those people when I have weird deals that I'm like, how do we have another solution for this? Because man, this is tricky, or maybe selling is not the best scenario for them. Maybe it's just not the right way to go. Um, and I've called on investor friends multiple times to help me out with creative finance situations and things like that. So definitely encourage you to do that. So I get my license, and then this is the meat. This is why we're here. It is. It wasn't to listen to me tell my story, although I hope that by this point you've gotten a couple little tidbits of things that can help you get prepared to get into the business. And if you're already in the business, um, and you didn't ever read Ninja Selling or MREA, then I would encourage you to do it. Or if you didn't know about the podcast, I promise they will make you a better agent. They will make you more competent. So now, how did I actually do it? How did I become um, the rookie of the year? Well, it did not start off that way. I'll tell you that. Um, I first off, I was lucky enough to join a team like right before we went into Christmas. So basically, before Christmas of 22, I just started basically all the onboarding. I was lucky enough to get hired by this team. We really vibed together. I like them, they like me. I told them, what I was looking for. And before Christmas, I really didn't do anything except set up emails, pull in my whole database from my phone. Just like it was all like the admin stuff so that when January came, I could hit the ground running and just like kind of flail, which is 100% what I did. So it was pretty cool. So our team, the Beresford Group, we have a YouTube channel called Living in Colorado Springs. That is our main and primary source of leads. It's awesome because we get to just go around and shoot videos and we get to explore the city. Recently we got to meet the mayor. We've done a brewery tour. We've done ice cream tour. But the big thing that we're really doing that's effective, just so you know, the effective stuff is some of the high funnel, don't move to Colorado Springs without knowing these 5 things, right? Stuff like that. We also do a lot of neighborhood tours. So that is a big investment. It's a big investment of our time. It's a big investment of our energy and money. Honestly, now we pay a videographer, but by the way, when we started, we didn't. Now they started at that before I joined the team. We already had the YouTube channel going, so props to the guys for just being consistent and deliberate. But just so you know, at first it was 2 guys sitting on a couch with their iPhone set up. Now we have a little bit higher production quality, but that's what they did for like 2 years. And then I convinced them to get a videographer and make it better. And it's definitely been awesome. And it takes the load off us because we are realtors first, content creators second. Now it's a symbiotic relationship, but my time is not best spent editing a video, right? So, um, so I joined the team. I'm getting all set up, and we're learning about this process called DTD2. So this is number one. This is not my idea. This is, I believe, it's actually from MREA. This is a Keller Williams idea. But DTD2 is do the database too. And this is super easy to find. It does not matter where you are. We still, even though we're not with Keller Williams anymore, we still have our CRM set up. So what it does is it takes all the letters of the alphabet, and every week it is, so for example, you'll have A and W. You will call everybody in your database whose last name starts with A and W. And then I can't remember what the other letter is. And then there's a separate column with a letter that's like J. And what you'll do there is you'll write handwritten notes to all of them. What happens is that's on a weekly basis. So you've got a week to get through them all, which is sometimes freaking impossible. And then every quarter it resets. And so it basically becomes a quarterly way to keep in contact with your database. It's pretty rad. So they will get a phone call and a handwritten letter from you pretty much every time. Now, this is something that new agents need. Hear me. When I first started, it felt unauthentic. It felt weird. It felt awkward to, what's the word? Systemize my friendships. And that was, I realized, a 100% me thing. And in fact, I also realized I have a really bad memory. And so systemizing it was actually super better because you're actually in a relationships building. Lead generation, it is very skill-based, but you're very much in a relationships business. And systemizing the relationships actually just meant that I was being a better friend because somebody told me something really important about their life and I forgot. And so I never followed up, or I told him, yeah, I'll give you a call back in like 2 weeks. Or he told me he had a job interview coming up and I never followed up with him to be like, hey, how'd it go? Did you get the job? Congratulations. Because I forgot. When instead, when you have a CRM or a customer resource manager, I think, or a customer relations manager, something like that, when you have that kind of system, you just take notes and you set reminders. And then when you log in, it tells you, hey, by the way, Joe, his birthday's today, or his baby is due today, or whatever. And it gives you a reminder to like reconnect with people. By the way, it's no more weird than getting a notification for somebody's birthday on Facebook, right? Like that's how nobody knows my birthday. Like 3 people do because I complain about it all the time. December 26th, it's the worst. But the reality is that like it's just I think it makes us better at the relationships, and it's just natural conversations. Now, early on, I was not calling people and being like, hello, would you like to, do you know anybody that's trying to buy or sell real estate? I honestly was not doing that. We follow a method called, let's see if I can do this. I might not even edit this because whatever, but Ford, Ford. Ford is a framework for successful conversations when in doubt. And I'm going to give you actually an even better one of a way to successfully have longer, better, more meaningful conversations. But Ford is family. I don't even know if these graphics are popping up. Family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So everybody, you start by talking about family. How's your wife? How's your kid? Your 7-year-old. How, second grade. Oh my God, that's crazy. Oh my gosh, they grew up so big. I haven't seen you in 3 years. I remember he was this big last time I saw him. Families, we don't need to talk about that. Occupation. How's work? By the way, you're also paying attention to the big changes. Are they moving? Did they get a new job? Did he get a pay raise, right? Recreation. Do you guys have any trips planned this year, right? What are you guys doing? Are you guys doing snowboarding this year? Like we have these conversations all the time. They're normal conversations, but sometimes it gives you like a little bit of a framework to have a short conversation with somebody when you call them, especially if it's somebody you haven't talked to in a long time. So, and then dreams like, well, what are you aspiring to? What are you trying to get to? What makes you feel happy right now? What makes you feel alive? And it's interesting to have these conversations with people. At first, it felt so weird. But then I was like, why is it weird? But I will tell you this. I do want to drop you another nugget here. Nobody cares about how many conversations you have, because while conversations can lead to closings, they do not equal closings. What equals a closing? Setting an appointment. So, two concepts that I have learned from Sharon Srivatsa, the man, the myth, the legend, the president of Real Broker, is number one, BAM FAM, book a meeting from a meeting. Now, all of these calls that you're doing, these are not necessarily going to be booking a meeting from that meeting, right? But what I started to realize were there were people that I was calling and I knew I had an opportunity to set an appointment. And I remember the first time when I really heard this, like, all that matters is setting appointments. And I was like, okay, they're actually right, because I can write down. It felt good to say, oh, I had 12 conversations today and I made 20 phone calls, but I'd never had the guts to actually ask for an appointment. And I remember I was dialing. There's a guy here in the Springs that I talked to multiple times. We'd never met in real life. He found us through YouTube, and Army guy. And we were talking on the phone. He was kind of telling me his plans, and I was like, okay, yeah. And I was hearing him out. And then I said, it was like I was about to end the conversation. And it was like in my mind's eye, I saw this like little plane pulling the big banner, and it just went right across my face. And it goes, with some inappropriate words. It was like, don't be a wuss, ask for the appointment. And I was like, okay, um, hey, would you want to grab lunch on Thursday? And we can just chat about this a little bit more. And he was like, yeah, that'd be great. And I was like, oh my God. That is how he became a client, like a legitimate client. That was the first time that we met. We established so much rapport by doing that. And I was like, and I became a believer. Just ask for the appointment. So book a meeting from a meeting. Now, going back to conversations, if you're doing DTD2, it's called noun hooking, I think is the actual terminology. But noun hooking is this idea that if you're listening to the sentence that I'm saying, so I'm telling you about my work, or whatever. Let's say I'm telling you about my work. What you're doing is you're active listening, you're paying attention to what I'm saying. And the way that you can keep the conversation going, if that's what you're trying to do, is find a noun and ask about the noun, or tell me to elaborate about the noun. Oh, tell me more about that computer program that you're using. Or do you guys like that computer program that you're using? Or we use a different one. So it's just an idea of, sometimes I feel like, and I used to really struggle with this. Somebody would ask me a question and we'd be talking and like have kind of conversation. And I was like, I don't know how to keep this conversation flowing. So that's just a really good tip. So noun hooking, Ford, two really, really big ones, and book a meeting from a meeting. The old BAM FAM, baby. That will give you a lot of success. So fast forward. I'm doing all these things. I'm kind of like earning my way into the team. Now I filmed quite a few YouTube videos. I had a different perspective because I was new to Colorado Springs. They'd been here for a long time. So I think that, I'm a little bit more animated. So I brought a lot more energy to the channel. It was super fun. We clicked really well. And finally I get my first YouTube lead, and it's awesome. And they're such great people. In fact, when I write out like my ideal client and I describe exactly who my ideal client is, it is literally this family. They were the freaking best. But it was funny because what ended up happening is they wanted to do a new build, and I was like, great. Well, there was another principle that I had learned, and one day I was driving along. I had shown him a couple places. This was all virtual, right? I was showing him everything through like FaceTime, which I will give you a great tutorial. So you're gonna want to subscribe, because I think that's the most important tutorial probably that I will ever do on this channel. It's something unique that I have a very good skill set in, is how to virtually show homes for clients that aren't even here. Well, I went out and I did that, and I was thinking about these lots that I had seen over on the other side of the highway, right underneath the mountain. And I knew that they were building out there. It was a great builder. And by the way, I had just come from one of my favorite neighborhoods in all of Colorado Springs. And this principle that I had learned from good old Alex Hormozy, he goes, when I'm realizing that I don't want to do something, I just tell myself, I will do what's required. And that really changed my whole MO. It changed the way that I um, saw things that maybe I didn't want to do, or I was like, and I kind of like wanted to slough off or be a schmuck and not really like give my all to. I said, no, I will do what's required. So I turned my car north, drove up north, drove over to that neighborhood, pulled out the drone. It was like 25 minutes out of the way, pulled out the drone, flew it around the property, went back in, talked to the sales rep, and she goes, I know they're really interested in that one, but you should really look at this one too. And so I went and I flew the drone over it. And what I did is I came home and I don't have great editing skills, by the way. And I edited together this quick little video, 2 or 3 minutes long of just drone footage, a bunch of different angles, a bunch of flight paths, put it together, put it to music, uploaded it to YouTube, made it private, sent it to them. I'll teach you how to do all that. And they were ecstatic. It was private. They were the only ones that could see it. It had like 38 views. They had watched it so many times and they were juiced. They sent me a message. They were like, this is the how, this is the spot. That place is amazing. Thank you so much for finding that. This is where we want to go. And I was like, oh my God, okay. And so I went back out there the next day, sat down with the builder, and the rest is history. They ended up buying. But here is a very important part of the story, because it's not like I did something magical. I just did what I knew I was supposed to do. I got rid of my little bit of laziness and my comfort. And it was like, oh, I really just want to like go back to the office. And I did what's required and I went to the place and it panned out. And that has happened so many times in this career where I just buckled down and I was like, I will do what's required. And it has changed the trajectory of my career. Well, spoiler alert, it was a lot. It was a plot of dirt. I don't know if you know how long it takes to build a house, but it ain't quick. It's actually relatively quick. You might be surprised. But it was like 9, 10 months out. So it's like, cool. I got my first deal under contract. This was now a few months after I had been working. So I think the first time I went under contract was in May, but or it was in March, excuse me. But now math that out. Like I'm not getting paid. So now I've been working for 3 months, haven't gotten paid, and that was kind of scary because I knew that paycheck, by the way, it was a $1.2 million house. I say that because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get paid so much. Well, it doesn't matter if I'm going to get paid because it was like 10 months out. So that was a little bit stressful. So that was my first deal that I got under contract, but it was not the first dollar that I made in real estate. And this is the last big chunk that I really want to tell you in this episode, because we could go all day and I've got a lot more of the next video that I'm doing. So make sure that you subscribe. The next video that I'm doing is how much I made in my first year of real estate. And we're going to break it down by the numbers. I'm going to show you all of the transactions that I did, how much I made from them. So I've got to do some digging because that's going to be a very difficult real estate video. But the first physical dollar that I made in this business did not even come from me closing a deal. It came from the number one reason why Kyle Petitt will never get rid of his license: referral deals. Referral deals are amazing. So, scenario, you, Dave, come to me and say, Kyle, I've got a friend that I'd like you to sell their house. And I say, great. You put me in touch with your friend. And really, I just say, thank you. I'm not allowed to give you any kind of kickback. That's not allowed in this industry. Well, that's frustrating because I had an agent that I gave multiple to before I was licensed. I gave multiple referrals to, and they're just like, thank you so much. And you're like, you're welcome. Well, here, when I send out a referral, and this was a couple years ago, you send it out and you get 25, 30. Now I send them out for 35%. So just for math here, you send out a deal that is worth $10,000, right? A commission. So the agent, the buyer or the seller's agent that you refer them to gets paid $10,000. If I get 35% of that, that's a $3,500 paycheck, give or take. That's a $3,500 paycheck that just shows up one day. What? So, so it was funny because when I had my one of my first sit downs with my team leader, he was like, "So, what are your goals?" And I was like, "Bro, I have no idea. How could I know that? I have no like. I can't make $100,000. I don't know." But like, I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know what that looked like because what if I have no experience? So I have nothing to gauge it off of. Um, but but we had that conversation, and when I made those first dollars, we readjusted, and I said my goal is to send out 100 referrals this year. Now I didn't send out 100 referrals, but I did send out over 50. It was crazy. And what's interesting, I also made that a volume game because um, when you send out that many referrals, well, I learned something along, I learned a little bit about that process along the way and like successful ways to do it, how to make sure that that handoff is warm and it's good and it's going to the right person, by the way, because the wrong agent can totally blow that thing up. Um, and then also what I started doing was like I would pre-qual somebody before I'd send them over, get like the basics. So it's a very warm handoff. That's also why I charge 35%. Well, um, what's interesting is like by just sales volume alone, I was actually like basically, we'll just call it for all intents and purposes, basically tied for rookie of the year. But what sent me all the way over was if you did total GCI, which is gross commission income, that is basically like how much total compensation did I make? My before splits, before paying the company, before paying the team, anything like that. And when you added in all of my referrals that I sent out, it went because I was like the only person taking advantage of this. It is the freaking best. I still do it. I still try to send out as many as I can. So again, I moved to Colorado Springs. I didn't know anybody here. So I had no sphere of influence. They're like, oh yeah, work your sphere. I was like, I have no sphere. Nobody lives here. I don't know anybody. And so granted, I was in the military, so I just kept up with my military friends. And I would just call some people that I hadn't even talked to. And they're like, oh, you got out. And I'm like, yeah, I did. What are you doing? I'm in real estate. How is it? It's great. I freaking love it. Like, honestly, never been happier. And they're like, sweet. And that was it. Like they weren't testing my knowledge. They were just like, are you happy? And I was like, yeah. And then I'd be like, so this was my line. And by the way, what I still use, but it just precedes conversation. And I would just say, oh, so are you going to be stuck at Canon your whole life? Or are you ever PCSing or what? And they go, oh, actually, I just got an assignment to DC. I just got an assignment to USAFA. I just got an assignment to whatever. And I go, oh, sick. Well, if you guys are going to buy or sell up there, are you guys going to buy a house? And they'd be like, yeah. I'd be like, listen, obviously I'm not licensed there. And even if I was, I don't know anything. I'm too new, but I do know a badass agent that's down there. You should get connected with them. And they'd be like, "Oh, that sounds great." And then you go through the process of finding that referral agent. I'll give you the whole step by step process of vetting somebody so that you can send a good referral. But if you don't have, you will find an agent. The other easy way to like slide in there, if they said they already had an agent, I'm like, hey, that's great. I actually know the number 7 VA lender in the country. And by the way, if it's not VA, I know a lender here that's in the top 1% of lenders nationwide. So those are big accolades, right? I'd say, yeah, actually, my VA lender, he's licensed down there. He's the number 7 VA lender in the country. He's a monster. He's super good. The two I use for my personal loans, and I've never seen anybody beat his rates. You want me to put you in touch? And they're like, yeah. Now, you don't get any kickback from that, but here is an important concept. This is how, when you are young, at some point, your first client, I'd be willing to bet, if you do this, you will successfully turn a lead into a client. And it is, drum roll, I don't know how to add effects in these videos, so sorry. It is, if you act like their agent, you will become their agent. If you act like their agent, you will become their agent. So what does that mean? Hook them up, give them answers, show them some info. Um, you just start like, you just start being the person, set them up like, oh, hey, well, if it's like somebody here, let's go see this thing. Or, hey, I wanted to send you this little market report. I don't know if you knew this, but X, Y, or Z. And it's not like I'm trying to like blow them up, but it's just casually, you act like their agent, do the things that their agent would be doing. It's almost like assuming the sale, but it requires physical action. And what did we say earlier? Doing what's required, right? If you do those things, you will find success in this business. Finding those referral deals was so huge to me because it really removed that commission breath. I've been very, very fortunate. And by the way, let me also say this because I have no intention of this video coming off as like, pat me on the back, like, oh, look at me, look at me. It's nothing like that because I recognize 100% that the reason that I was successful was because I had a killer team supporting me. I had opportunities through the team, good, strong leads that came through the team because they've already seen us on YouTube. They like us. They feel like they know us. They trust us. They want to meet us. So it's a little bit different experience. But I still, by the way, to this day, like I rely on the team for guidance and help and filling in where, my shortcomings. So this has not been a solo effort at all. But those things that I did are things that you can do too, right? And that, here's the thing is that you could be on the biggest, most badass team in the country. Literally, you could be given 1,000 leads. But if you have no skill set, if you can't talk about the business, if you can't sound intelligent, if you can't have confidence because you've been listening to podcasts, attending trainings, and like you are a professional, right? We are professionals. I'm not just some guy trying to do real estate. You could give me 1,000,000 leads, but if I'm not doing those things, I'm not going to close any of them, or I'm going to close them at a very, very, very low rate, which is unsustainable, which is why 87% of realtors fail. And by the way, if you think just because you're in the military and you're going to do skill bridge, that's going to be like your easy button because, it was really beneficial for me to get into the business, low risk, internship, still getting paid, whatever. I got news for you. I've put 50, 75, somewhere between 50 and 75 people through skill bridge. And there's like 4 still remaining. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of it is just the general attrition of people get in the business, they realize they don't like it. Some feel like they didn't have the support that they needed. But I think some also just didn't have the discipline and the kind of I will do what's required and understand that like this ain't the military. Somebody's not telling you what to do from 7 to 5 or 8 to 5 every day. Like you got to figure it out. You got free time? Are you scrolling Instagram? Are you playing Call of Duty? Or are you slinging deals? Right. And there's an energy and a momentum and a consistency that comes with that. So if you are trying to take your business to the mother freaking moon, baby, that's why we're here. Those are the people I'm trying to surround myself with. If you're trying to take your business to the moon and take your finances ultimately to the moon, hit the subscribe button. This is the place to be. We are going to be going over, like I said, all the deals that I went over in my first year. We're going to have deal breakdowns. We're going to have the big one that I want to really make sure I do a good tutorial on is how to successfully show homes through freaking FaceTime. I had 2 closings this week, okay? 2, where the final walk, so if you don't know what that is, that means right before, as close to closing as possible, you walk through the house one more time with the clients, and you're basically just looking to make sure that the house is not destroyed, that it was left in an acceptable condition before you go and like sign on the dotted line, right? Also make sure that there's no squatters there, LOL. But both of these closings this week, I kid you not, the final walk was also their physical first walk. One bought from California, one bought from Texas. They had never seen the house ever. We had just done FaceTime. Very, very thorough FaceTimes. clients before that, like if I'm in an area that we don't have service, I do that. What I said, I make a video, put it together, edit it, to be as nice as I can, which I'm kind of an idiot, and then post it on YouTube, make it a private video, send it to them. Good luck, have fun. That is the other way that people are seeing houses for the first time. So it is a skill set, giving them the confidence that you're not just trying to sell them a product, but that you are competent and they can be confident in you that they're willing to make a $500,000 decision off of a FaceTime video. It's crazy. Let's take our businesses to the moon. Hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching. I love you, and I will see you next time.